Hi guys, back at it again. How are you guys doing? Hope you're all well. Do you like my new setup? It moves, which might end up being a bad idea, but we'll figure that out. Honestly, the more I get involved in this, or honestly, the more I read about this Kataang and Zutara shipping war, the more I realize that Zuko and Sokka are the only two ships that deserve rights, and that's final. So congratulations. Genuinely, how is it possible for Zuko and Sokka shippers to be best friends and basically in love? They're the same as Kataang and Zutara, aren't they? You know, both of their ships have Sokka in them because we love Sokka, and they're getting along just fine. But no, Kataang and Zutara shippers have to rip each other's throats out because they just don't know what respect is. Can you tell I've thought about this a lot? But I mean, yeah, we all knew that. Isn't it funny how I think it's telling that the two ships that have Sokka in them are the most unproblematic and best ones. So, yeah. Anyways, introduction. Hi guys. How are you? Sorry, I can't decide if I like my hair or not. Sure. Welcome back to my channel. As you can see here, I found another setup for my videos because I am the most indecisive person on this planet. Today we are talking about a very fun topic that I have been meaning to talk about for literally ever since the last scene of Avatar went on its way. I've been thinking about this, and that is that I want to do a video about the romance in Avatar. Now, I was gonna do a more overall video talking about my problem with all of the romance in Avatar, and then I realized that really the only I absolutely love Suki and Sokka. That ship, perfection, everything you could ever want, you know, they're supportive of each other, they love each other, and they're so freaking adorable. And Maiko is also a ship that I think is adorable. I don't know if they could work as a long-term couple unless they worked on their kind of severe communication issues, and you know, the fact that they're so different, and that leads to a lot more conflict than it does them being compatible. But nothing a little couples therapy can't fix. So really, I mean, I genuinely do like them though. So really, I realized that my only problem here is with Kataang. And I know, Kataang is the romance in Avatar, you know, the main one, you know, it's with the titular character, the Avatar, it's his ship. But I just don't like it, and I also realized that to best articulate my problem with Kataang, I would have to compare and contrast it to Zutara. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that I think Katara should have ended up with Zuko. I will be making that argument, but I also just kind of feel like she doesn't need a man. She could have stayed single and chillin', or hear me out, her and Suki would have been so cute. I said it there, okay? So, but yeah, it does mean that I think Zuko would have been the better choice between the two. That also doesn't mean I'm implying there was a choice in the way this show was structured, but you're gonna have to deal with this. If you're a Kataang shipper, basically what I'm trying to say is if you're a Kataang shipper, you are not going to like this video. And obviously you're free to watch this, but if you're gonna, if you know, it's I don't watch videos about Kataang because I know what was I saying? Yeah. So if you I don't watch videos about Kataang because I know I'm gonna disagree with them, but if you want to watch this and disagree with me, go ahead. Just don't watch it if you're gonna go down there and talk about how much everything about Zutara sucks, because like, you knew what you were getting into. Okay. Second sort of little warning we're gonna start with. This video is also not here to bash Aang, okay? I love Aang. I absolutely love his character and I admire a lot about his character. I just don't love his character with Katara. Hence this video. Okay. I would also like to point out that I wrote an 11-page essay on why I don't think this ship works, and I still kind of have more to add and expand on. So basically expect this to be the longest yet most pointless video I've ever made. An 11-page essay. Okay. Ignoring that, let's get started. First off, I am going to get the biggest argument against Zutara out of the way, because I don't need that in this video. I'm getting it out of the way. I do not ship Zutara because I have a crush on Zuko. I know. What a concept. I mean, yeah, I have a crush on him, but I also have a crush on all of these characters. That's putting my editing skills to the test if I can get photos of characters up. My point is, Zuko is not special in me having a crush on him, and my crush on him is not like tainting my view of what I think, of what relationships I think work in this show. I mean, so like, there you go. What's your point? Basically, I can assure you that it doesn't come into play here, and if it did, I would be willing to admit it. Like, I can assure you I've probably had ships before that I only like because I've had crushes on the characters, and there's nothing wrong with that inherently. Like, sure, some ships you're like, okay, that's kind of toxic. Like, if you think of Draco and Hermione, that ship in canon would not work. I mean, it could work with a lot of like, if you gave Draco an actual redemption arc, sure, but like, I don't know, you could make the argument that a lot of people ship it because they had a crush on Tom Felton. Hey, I had a crush on Tom Felton. It works, you know what I mean? But I also don't, you know, like, and I also understand that I'm not Katara, and that what the choices I might have made in her place don't matter here, right? Katara is her own character. However similar I might feel to her in some ways, she is still very different to me in others. What else have I got here? I wrote an essay, I may as well use it. I also understand that some people may ship Zutara because they have a crush on Zuko. I also, however, feel that I also know that it's not in the majority because Avatar came out 15 years ago. And for a ship, a lot of people who shipped Zutara back then for that reason are grown adults now. And I can tell you that that's not, you know, you grow out of that phase the older you get. And a lot of people now have legitimate reasons for shipping said ship that don't involve how breathtakingly beautiful Zuko was. This video, yeah, so basically, please stop telling me that I ship Zutara because I have a crush on Zuko. Come on, I wrote an 11-page essay to prove you wrong. This video is also going to hopefully put a focus on Katara's side in this whole romance thing, which the show forgot to do. Yeah. It'd be nice to have one scene of Katara being like, hey Aang, I like you too. But apparently I wish for too much. It's kind of hot in here. Like, I put this sweater on to like kind of give like cozy vibes. I was gonna grab a cup of tea and then I remembered I like don't drink tea. So I'm sacrificing my actual comfort to give off like comfortable vibes. So you're welcome. Thank you. I also want to get out of the way that yes, I care about a fictional ship way too much. I have never written 11 pages for anything before. No essay, nothing. I mean, I haven't written a lot of essays in my life, at least not yet. But yeah, 11 pages is not something that I would ever be able to do in like a normal English class unless I put so much effort in, and this took me like a couple hours over a few days. So okay. And also Zutara isn't even my favorite ship in the show, so I don't think you can't hurt me. What? Yeah, you might not be convinced that it's not my favorite ship considering I wrote an 11-page essay. I'm gonna keep bringing that up, okay? 11 pages. But, you know, you do you. I think Sokka and Zuko are the best ships in this entire show, and nothing can change my mind. Also, Mei Lee. Mei Lee is criminally underrated. Like, I know a lot of people ship Azula and Ty Lee, but Mei and Ty Lee are right there. They Ty Lee canonly picked Mei over Azula, or at least maybe she just didn't want her friends to fight, but she did. Okay, thank you. Mei and Ty Lee are so cute. Okay, I'm gonna start off with my reasoning for making this video. I know I just gave like okay, what I just talked about were mostly disclaimers. Let's talk about my reasoning for making this video. I was confused. I always, and I mean always, like canon ships. Like, it doesn't take much to convince me. You give me a ship, you give me a canon ship, and half a good reason to ship it, and I will. That also doesn't mean I only ever ship canon ships. Like, I am a full-on multi-shipper. I ship everything. Except for, like, the really weird ones. I'm looking at you, Sokka and Katara shippers. Ooh, okay. However, Kataang as a ship just bothered me on a spiritual level because I'm dramatic, and I'm here to find out why, while also giving a better alternative because Zutara shippers deserve some love. Seriously. Like, Zuko, like I mentioned, Zuko and Sokka shippers are best friends, but I have yet to see a Zutara post that doesn't have a Kataang fang underneath it, taking it all personally. Please just respect each other's ships. I also know most Kataang shippers aren't like this, but I'm talking about the ones that are. I also understand that some Zutara shippers, sometimes in their quest to prove how much they like Zutara, definitely hate on Aang too much. And I think sometimes Kataang shippers make Zuko out to be an odd character. Like, he isn't some bad boy, mysterious dude who Katara, the nurturing girl, fell for. I know I've seen people treat the ship like that, and I'm like, excuse me, you're telling me Zuko, the dude who probably lives by his turtle duck pond feeding tiny little turtle ducks, is a mysterious bad boy? No? Okay, I think a good place to start with why I want to get to the bottom of Kataang is visuals. This is one of my weakest arguments, but it does help me understand my apprehension for this ship for a long time. See, I spent way longer than I'd like to admit, which would be most of the first season, thinking that Aang was around 8 years old and that Katara was like 16. And so basically, a lot of the first season I was like, no, this is illegal. You know, like this illegal? Like borderline illegal. Like, I know technically it's not, but like, and so you can imagine my relief when I finally decided to look up the ages and was like, okay, phew, Aang's 12, Katara's 14. But I like to think that the reason I spent so long getting their ages wrong is because of their character designs. Aang is designed to look really young, and he's got almost this like pure aura around him. And that isn't to diminish his struggles or his inner demons, it's just what his design portrays. And Katara, like most of the female characters on this show, is designed in a way that makes her look much older. I mean, just take a look at someone like Azula. I had to constantly remind myself that Azula was younger than Zuko because her character design just didn't reflect that, along with the way she acted, but that's a different story. In simpler terms, Katara's been through puberty, Aang hasn't. And while that isn't exactly a huge problem, it, paired with her acting almost babysitter-like, towards Aang definitely made this ship not it for me. Now, I use the term babysitter because I've seen how people act when you dare say Katara acted motherly towards Aang. And it's like, she did. That doesn't make her his actual mother, and it also doesn't mean she couldn't have grown out of it, and that with Aang maturing, they couldn't have become more equals instead of the dynamic they had in the show. Being a motherly figure to someone is different to being their actual mother, because it was very easy for the show to mature Aang and change Katara and Aang's dynamic to not be that, but I don't feel like they did that. So her also, you know what? Her being a mother-like figure is literally the plot of an entire episode, so screw it. She acted motherly towards Aang. I've told you why that's okay. Now, I also, for the fun of it, asked my friend how old she thought Aang and Katara were, since she's never seen the show before. And she also thought that Aang was 8 and Katara was 16, and I know that does absolutely nothing to help my argument, but it validated me. And she also calls Aang the 8-year-old now every time I talk to her about the show, so that's important to know. And like, I call him that now when I'm talking to her. I'm like, oh my god, 8-year-old did this. Okay, he's not 8, he's 12. I need to clarify that. Like, their age is not a problem in this. Well, it is, but not like, it's not their ages, it's their maturity gap. I'm pretty sure I get into that. Okay, now let's get into tropes. Both Kataang and Zutara fall into very popular tropes. The hero gets the girl, and enemies to friends to lovers respectively. I know Zutara might also be considered opposites attract, but I have a whole section about why I don't think that they're opposites, so we'll get there. Now, I don't inherently have a problem with either of these tropes. Hell, my favorite ship, Percy Jackson and Annabeth Chase, are the hero gets the girl and also sort of enemies to friends to lovers. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, I don't have a problem with either of those tropes. My problem comes in their execution, which is where I feel Kataang fails. In my opinion, the biggest problem the hero gets the girl trope runs into is not bothering to fully develop both sides of the relationship and almost acting as if because the character is the hero, he deserves the girl, or she deserves the guy. Like, I'm calling it hero gets the girl, but it goes either way or neither way, however you want to frame it. In some ways, I feel that Kataang falls into this trap. We get maybe like, I don't know, 3 scenes where Katara shows like some genuine kind of interest in Aang. I mean, one of those is a dance scene in which the same episode she plays his mother. So, I mean, she isn't even happy the first 2 times he kisses her, which just never made sense to me because, I don't know, showing her at least smiling after a kiss might make it more believable when she kisses him at the end. Make it make sense. Like, it's so easy. This is an animated TV show. It's a TV show. You can have Katara after the invasion. Maybe she isn't fully sure of her feelings, but a little like a smile or just a neutral expression. Like, she looked downright sad after he kissed her. On my second point there, which is the hero just being a hero makes him deserve the girl, that final scene in the show always bothered me because in the end, Katara walked out onto that balcony, stood there looking all pretty, and then kissed him. It felt like she was a trophy, a prize he got for saving the world, especially since the last one-on-one interaction they had before this was him violating her boundaries and her essentially turning him down, at least in that moment. You could try and argue that maybe they resolved this issue off screen, but like, the argument they had was pretty major. Why would you drum up so much drama before the finale and then not bother to solve it? It literally would have taken 2 goddamn sentences. And you know what? I did this. I will literally write the scene right now to prove that to you. And then I did. I wrote the scene. You all want to hear it? That was a really bad throat clearing thing, but like, I also don't want it to seem like I'm actually sick because I'm not. No panics me. Oh god. I heard putting your laptop on your lap is bad for you, but it's fine. Okay, ready? Katara walks out onto the balcony. Hi, Yang. You know, because it'd be nice if they actually said something to each other. Hey, Katara. I wanted to say sorry for how pushy I was during the play. I get that you're confused and everything, and I want to give you some time to think about it. Aang, I appreciate it, but I wanted you to know that I'm not confused anymore. Now that the war is over, I've had time to think about it, and I do like you back. Everyone claps, and they kiss. Okay, so that was more like 4 or 5 sentences, but my point still stands. That took me at maximum 5 minutes to write. That show has professional writers on it. If they really wanted, they could have written that scene so much better than I did, so much less awkward than I did, and it would have been perfect. It would have solved one of the biggest issues most people have with this ship. And then again, it doesn't solve the other problems I have with the relationship, but at the very least, it's something. Or, and I have a theory here, is it that couples solving their problems and working out their issues isn't romantic enough? Because like, Suki and Sokka did it, and back in the Serpent's Past, and their kiss was still just as adorable. So I don't think that point stands. Basically, Katara, that whole thing was basically to tell you that Katara and Aang represent what can go wrong when you think someone being the hero is enough to start a romance. They never develop that relationship enough, and they can develop a relationship. Suki and Sokka are proof of that. You know, Sokka literally started off the show thinking women were inferior, and then he met Suki and literally drank respect woman juice every morning from then on. It's not hard to, I'm not saying it's easy to develop a relationship, but I also am saying that we've seen this show do it, so what was the problem? I also feel like that whole hero gets the girl thing, basically, the whole someone being the hero is enough to start a romance, I feel like it diminishes Katara's character to not at least have a conversation like the one I just mentioned happen. This isn't anything against Aang either. I know he didn't have bad intentions during the Ember Isle Players episode, but I'll be getting more into that later. Which, by the way, I know he didn't have bad intentions, but my whole rant on the Ember Isle Players episode is a like full-on rant, so like be prepared. I don't actually dislike Aang, but I was very mad when I wrote that. Plus, Aang can't write his own character, so why should I be mad at him about it? Meanwhile, in my very, very humble opinion, I think Katara and Zuko would have been a healthy way to show an enemies to friends to lovers relationship. It wouldn't have been toxic like so many are, because they forgive each other for the issues they had in the past, and they build a solid friendship before. I mean, they have a very, very strong friendship in this show. Zuko also respects Katara when she has yet to forgive him and isn't pushy about it. He just finds a way. He just tries to find ways to hopefully earn her forgiveness. It doesn't fall into the problem this trope usually has, where one person is odd and manipulative towards the other, and that's what causes their romance. It works, and that also brings me to one little point I wanted to add: bickering, which is what Katara and Zuko do for a lot of Ember Island players, and after that is not toxic. It and like actually arguing and fighting with someone are two different things, and I just feel like, I don't know, I guess I see a lot of people think that bickering means toxic relationship, and that's just not true. I mean, bickering can even be romantic, but I don't have the energy for that right now, and I'm also not going to sit here and act like, oh my god, Katara and Zuko bickering in Ember Island was like romantic, because I don't necessarily think it was. Anyways, but yeah, that's all I have for this category. This video is a mess. Oh my god, I've already been recording for 24 minutes. Oh yay. Aren't y'all excited for my, oh boy. Okay, I don't have much more to add here, so let's move forth. least that's what I wrote here. Okay, next. I love how I actually wrote out the dilemma I was having. I was like, I don't know if I want to talk about maturity or equals or themes. Let's do themes and symbolism. Again, now, let's talk about themes and symbolism. That should be fun. Now, should a couple get together just because said relationship fits a show's themes and symbolism? No, that sounds like a terrible and toxic relationship. However, it does help if the themes and symbolism add to an already strong relationship foundation. Now, Avatar is a show bathed in symbolism and themes. What are the main themes here? Well, in my opinion, I would say balance and unity, and that's shown in its symbolism. Aang and Zuko, the two titular characters, represent yin and yang. Yin and yang. Now this should be fun. Okay, now, Zuko and Katara have a lot of surface level symbolism. They're fire and water, red and blue. They both pretended to be spirits, and so forth. I mean, hello, you rise with the moon, I rise with the sun is literally a line Zuko says to Katara. I know symbolism is some low-hanging fruit, but like, I need you to hear me out. Also, I feel like you can tell by now, but I read a Zutara shipper's lament. I'll link that in the description. It's like this. It's basically what inspired me to write this whole thing. It's also a smaller essay. I mean, listen, I don't really know what a normal size essay is, but it's basically an essay on Zuko and Katara. And like that's where I got the inspiration for this video from, and some of the points also. So yeah, check that out. It's really well written. I really enjoyed reading it. Okay, hear me out here. On the surface, Zuko and Katara do represent yin and yang. They're, like I mentioned, they're fire and water, the sun and the moon, dark and light. However, I think the real genius of Zutara is that it represents a subversion of this theme. You expect their relationship to be something like yin and yang when it's really more akin to something like the twin flames. When you really get into it, Katara and Zuko are two very, very similar people. They're both kind and compassionate, who are hot-headed, but they're also hot-headed and assertive, and they have a hard time truly letting people in. I mean, Katara may bring her mother and past up a lot, but Zuko was the only person she truly trolled that whole story to. And also, because of the losses they've suffered, they've been forced to grow up so much faster than most people. It just happens that Zuko, for a long time, would only really show his hot-headed side unless it sometimes came to his uncle, while Katara was just a lot more nurturing. Now, don't get me wrong, she was also very hot-headed and assertive. I mean, just look at her fight with Master Paku, but I'm talking more about the sides they showed most. It isn't until season 3 when these roles are almost flipped. Katara is taking a lot less shit this season, and is also letting out a darker side to her, which is probably why, I think that's probably why some people didn't like Katara 3rd season, but I just loved her. Like, I finally feel like she wasn't like the idealized version so many people saw her as, and she was just like human. I mean, she's a character, but she was felt so real. Whereas Zuko in this same season chooses to join Aang's side and truly becomes good, and I feel is truly at his kindest and most forgiving stage in life. Zuko, I'm going to get into the parallel arcs in a bit, but basically let me wrap up my argument. Zuko and Katara would have been an intriguing pairing in Avatar when it comes to symbolism and themes, because while they would represent balance and unity, it would be in an unexpected way. It would be because of how similar they are, not how different, you know? And I think season 3 also shows how both of them can bring out those different sides of each other. At least like how in the season 2 finale, it seemed that Katara was able to bring out a much more vulnerable side of Zuko, while in season 3, Zuko was able to help Katara face her inner anger and demons. Now, I don't know if I already said this. I realized, I just said why, because they bring out different sides of each other. You're welcome. I realize it's been a minute since I've mentioned Katara and Aang, so I guess I'll just say that they don't really represent the same kind of symbolism. They have unity going for them, I guess. That might be a bit of a stretch, but I also understand, like, that's okay. They don't need symbolism and themes. Ships can and do work well without the aid of those things. It's just that it's nice when they do have stuff like that because it makes for some fun analysis and cool bonuses. So, like I mentioned before, this next category is going to be parallels. This is going to be the last of the very Zutara heavy categories that I made up the middle of this video. I'm sure you guys are happy about that. So, Zuko and Katara's arcs parallel each other, and I think that's pretty rad. I use the word rad here, so I'm using it in this video. Bite me, please don't. Season 1, they are both at their arguable weakest. Sure, they can both bend, but everyone around them is just better than them. I mean, this is a frustration point in Katara, when, like we see in the waterbending scroll episode, when Aang being better at waterbending than her truly causes a lot of frustration. They both want to be accepted by their respective homes. Katara wants to become a powerful waterbender to better connect with their culture and heritage, while Zuko wants to be accepted by his nation and family again. It's the ending of these seasons that differentiates them. Katara ends the season a master waterbender who's been accepted by the Northern Water Tribe, while Zuko ends it the same in terms of bending, but is turned into a fugitive by the Fire Nation, making him much worse off than he was at the beginning of the season. He even cuts off his ponytail, something that is akin to death in the Fire Nation. Basically, he's at an all-time low. Season 2, I don't have much for you, except that it's just a lot of build-up that pays off in the 3rd season. And that, but except for the fact the catacomb scene exists, and that it really establishes the similarities and connection between them. That connection, again, doesn't have to be romantic. Okay, I'm just saying that they had a connection there, and however you want to interpret that connection is truly up to you. Okay, great. Let's do season 3 now. So we start the season with both Katara and Zuko both at fairly low points in their lives. Katara is still pissed at Zuko, and she channels that anger towards her father before getting the chance to hurl it at Zuko. Zuko, on the other hand, is back in the Fire Nation, again, very, very, very conflicted over the decision he made back in season 2. And what essentially happens with that is, I didn't get into that in my essay, so I'm trying to figure out how to word it properly, is that I think Zuko and Katara both had a lot to do with each other's arcs this season, with Katara probably being a major deciding factor in Zuko joining the Fire Nation. Not because he's joining Avatar. Not because he's in love with her, but because I think Katara was the first person to show him kindness and compassion, knowing who he was and knowing everything he's done to her. And I think that might have hurt more because he directly betrayed someone who had been so kind to him. And Zuko helped Katara confront his mother's killer, which, let's get into that. There is one very important parallel in this season, which is that both Zuko and Katara, I need to know what time it is, which is that both Zuko and Katara get to confront the people who took their mothers from them. Zuko does this, albeit unknowingly, when he finally chooses good and confronts his father. His father then his father tells him that, he essentially banished his mother, so he took his mother from her. And then he tries to murder Zuko by electrocution, and Zuko, while redirecting the lightning, chooses to shoot it at his father's feet instead of somewhere it could have killed him. Yeah, Zuko had a chance to kill the man who took away his mother and didn't. Sound familiar? This then comes to head when Katara wants to get revenge on the man who killed her mother. Let's talk about the Southern Raiders for a bit, shall we? Everyone else is very much against this. They're like, hey Katara, I don't think wanting to murder someone is the best thing. They are freaked out because this is very unlike the Katara they're used to seeing, and because they don't want her to follow through on what she's planning on doing. However, I also think that while Sokka and Aang had good intentions and were technically right in not wanting her to do what she wanted to do, I think the biggest reason Katara was never going to listen to them was because they didn't trust her. They didn't trust her to make the right decision in the end, at least not at first. Zuko, on the other hand, knows why Katara needs to confront the man who killed her mother and trusts her to make the right decision, whatever she feels that is. He's been in her position before, so he understands her in a way the others just can't. That's not to say that Aang hasn't lost people too. I mean, he's lost everyone, all the air nomads. And hell, Kaya was Sokka's mother too. But they've never been in the position Zuko has, which gives them a unique understanding of Katara. This is also why I disagree with Zuko being a bad influence on Katara. That's simply not the case. This is a side of Katara that's always been there, and it's not like Zuko forced her to confront the dude. He told her that he would take her to confront him, and she could have very easily just said no. I also think it's an important little tidbit I want to add is that it's important that Katara feels comfortable letting out her anger around Zuko, because being truly open with someone is the basis of healthy friendships even. Like, to have a healthy relationship of any kind with someone requires you to not feel like you have to hide a part of yourself. I don't think Zuko had bad intentions, though I can see the argument being made that he might have had selfish ones. I'm not gonna pretend like Zuko was completely in the right here, and the possibility that he did this hoping that this would help Katara to forgive him are fairly high. But in the end, he trusted her, and that's important. He trusted her and he understood her. Two things that at that moment Sokka and Aang couldn't provide her, just because of the unique circumstances of that situation. Aang and Sokka are still two very understanding and great people, and they're great friends to Katara. I mean, Sokka's her brother, but I'm just putting that out there. I know how helpful they've been to Katara. It's just that in this situation, they weren't. Plus, their hug, the Zutara hug at the end, was fucking adorable. Like, okay, they were staring into each other's souls, and you can't change my mind. That girl flew into his arms. Did you see her? Like, she flew into him. And they were so tight. By the way, that hug I want a hug like that. It doesn't have to be romantic. I want one of my friends to give me a hug like that, man. Like, it just feels so comfortable and like comforting. And then they were staring at each other the whole way. Anyways, so my next category is called equals, because I don't know the best order to word my argument in. Again, I've never really written an essay before, but I do know that I'm saving most of my heated rants for the next two categories, so I guess you have that to look forward to. Katara and Zuko are equals. I feel like I've established that. The only other point I want to add is that they were the mom and dad of the group when Zuko finally joined Aang, evident by them parenting everyone, and also that Zuko was the only person Katara didn't have to mother. Katara and Aang, on the other hand, I would argue that they aren't equals. For one, Katara is always the one mothering him, comforting him. Let's do some comparisons, shall we? So I'm going to focus on the mothering and comforting bit here. Katara is there to comfort Aang when he finds out about the genocide of the air nomads. She is there for them when Appa goes missing, even if he's being cold and distant and brash. She understands him and knows that he needs comfort and support. Now, in comparison, when Katara mentions her mother, Aang almost never has something to say. And I get it. He's a kid. He probably doesn't know how to comfort her. And this is in no way to hate on Aang, but he has flaws, and I'd argue this is one of them. For the comparison, this is for the eBay comparison. I don't know what that was supposed to say. Oh, I should have proofread this. For the comparison, let's take the Southern Raiders again. When Katara wants to confront the man who killed her mother, Aang is completely against it. He isn't sympathetic to her situation. Okay, he is sympathetic. Okay, I don't know why I wrote that. He's sympathetic to what she's going through, but he doesn't try to see why she wants to do what she wants to do. He doesn't try to talk about it with her. He simply thinks that she's wrong and that he's right, and that his values should be the ones that she should follow. Now, Aang is right in that revenge isn't the answer, but couldn't he at least try to understand her? Like, Aang knows what it's like to feel guilty for the loss of someone, and I feel like that should have been a moment of connection here instead of a moment of conflict. Okay, for example, can you imagine Katara treating Aang like this when Appa went missing? I mean, hello, he almost killed the sandbenders who kidnapped Appa until Katara talked him down, and she continued to try to get him to stop being distant or suspecting that this loss affected him. She didn't yell about him being careful about the Avatar state or being more supportive and there for her because she knew he needed support and understanding. This shows a fundamental difference in Katara and Aang's emotional and overall maturity. They are just simply different. Katara couldn't have gone up to Aang and been like, sorry, I don't know why you're mad about Appa, there are more important things to worry about, or that this is the way you should deal with this, and I don't know why you're so mad or why you're so this, you know what I mean? This, like I said, it just shows a fundamental difference in their emotional and overall maturity. Spending her whole life in a war has forced Katara to mature beyond her years. She's 14 going on like 25 when it comes to maturity. And while I don't necessarily know if that's a good thing or not, it's a thing. That's how that is. And Aang just has a lot of maturing to do in that aspect. Like, I feel like he's 12 going on 8 because he's just a carefree child who, yes, has a lot of darkness in him, but overall he's not at Katara's level when it comes to maturity. They're not... Yeah, basically, Aang has a lot of maturing to do, and by the time the show's final scene rolls around, he isn't there yet. They're not equals. Their dynamic is still Katara the Comforter. Basically, I think that if you really insist on putting these two together, you just have to wait a few more years. You have to wait until their maturity levels match each other, and when they're both able to be there for one another and comfort each other and be emotionally available to one another. That it shouldn't be something that happens during their relationship, because that would require Katara to basically teach Aang how to be like mature, and like no. Let's get into unhealthy dynamics now. I know I just kind of talked about that, but I'm talking about a different kind of dynamic here. Why does that sound... Okay. Hey, why don't we start off with a little joke? What do you get when you put a forsaker and a person with a fear of abandonment together? An unhealthy relationship. Okay, fine. That wasn't a joke. It wasn't funny. And if you're still confused, forsaker is just a fancy word for abandon or leave. Thanks, Google. And I just described Aang and Katara respectively. Katara has abandonment issues. Just look at how he treated her dad for weeks because he went off to war for years. Like she felt like he abandoned her. Or in that same episode, her reaction to Aang leaving. And that's also the thing. Aang does that a lot. He leaves. It's another character flaw of his, one that he constantly has to confront but never seems to learn from. He left the air nomads when he learned he would be separated from Gyatso, and hey, that's understandable. This is just a kid who wants to live his life and spend time with his mentor. But him leaving did mean that he got trapped in an iceberg for 100 years while a war waged around him. This is actually something he has to confront a lot through the series, with people being mad at him for what they perceive as him abandoning the world. A good example of this is the episode The Storm, where a man blames Aang for the state of the world, and he responds by leaving. And yes, he did it out of guilt and because he thinks the man is right. I'm only bringing this up because it clashes with Katara as a character. When he does this, Katara is very distressed and goes after them. They talk things out and all seems good. The next time I can remember him leaving is during the episode The Desert. He is mad and upset that Appa is missing because obviously, Appa is his closest companion and his last living tie to the air nomad. However, he does leave his friends in the middle of a desert to go look for him, putting his friends in danger since they don't have a way out. And being an airbender, it would be very helpful if you could fly over and tell them where the exit might be. As if the desert has an exit, hey, exit left to leave the desert. Anyways, This leaves Katara to then care for the group and try to find a way out of the desert while she worries about where he's gone. I just feel like he should be learning his lesson, because then in the finale he again leaves after an argument with the gang about what to do about Ozai, and Katara literally yells after Aang, "Don't you walk away from this." Though when he leaves for the lion turtle, he's kind of sleepwalking, so maybe he gets the benefit of the doubt here. And here he gets the benefit of the doubt there, but he causes Katara a lot of stress, especially since Sozin's comet is supposed to be arriving in like 2 days. Aang, being someone who constantly leaves and runs from his problems, is not a great pairing with someone like Katara, who deals with a lot of abandonment fears, and who also has to deal with the stress and aftermath of Aang's leaving. He never seems to learn to confront his problems head on. Even the fact that he was supposed to let go of Katara as an attachment, it doesn't seem like he ever does. Like, he temporarily does in the second season, but then like third season, just like a rock hits him and oh my god, Avatar state, you know. Like, I guess in that, I also kind of wish that in that finale he had to let go of Katara, like he had to let go of Katara, and for once he had to face that issue head on and confront it. Like, that would have been some damn great character development. But I didn't write this show. Moving on. Okay. Now, this is something I'm sure they could work out as a couple, if Aang was willing to confront the issue, that is. Plus, I just don't think it's fair that Katara would have to be the one to bring this up and help him through it. It would be nice if he just acknowledged the issue himself and made an effort to solve it too. Katara is supposed to be his equal, not his therapist. And there are also some things that couples simply can't solve, because it just means that they're fundamentally people who can't work romantically. So maybe Aang is better off with someone who would be willing to directly confront him about this issue, or maybe someone who isn't bothered by him acting this way over problems. And I don't think Katara is either of these people, but obviously you can disagree with that. Now, Katara and Zuko don't really fit into this category anywhere. I mean, I'd argue that abandonment fear is probably something they both should go to therapy for. So there are no winners or losers. There are no winners or losers in this category, just characters with real human issues, and I guess that's something I appreciate. Aang not wanting to confront his problems and stuff like that is a very real thing. I mean, it's something I deal with a lot. Like, I constantly deal with the fact that I can't just like close my eyes and hope the problem goes away. Like, you have to sometimes deal with it, directly deal with it. But I also think that showing Aang dealing with the problem would have been nice. But instead, up until the final moment, he never really seems to have to. Like, he obviously does confront a lot of his problems, but I just guess he could have confronted more. I don't know. Now for the rant. My next category is called respect and entitlement. This should be fun. Hey kids, as a rule of thumb, respecting your partner is a very important part of a healthy relationship. I'm sure that seems obvious, but since the show never seemed to resolve the issue, I thought I'd bring it up. Yes, this whole category is basically going to be about the Ember Isle players with a hint of the Southern Raiders. Let's start with the thing that pisses me off so much about this episode, and I'm not exactly sure why it bothers me to this extent, but hey, that's why we're here. It's this little clip. Yes, the angry little nod. That one? Aang. Sweetie, I love you, but no. Just no. Katara is not your girl. Storming off in a jealous rage because some play put your crush with your friend is also not a good look. I love Aang, but he's my least favorite in this scene for 2 reasons. His entitlement and his unwillingness to admit that he's wrong. At the very least, when he kisses Katara later on in this episode, he immediately realizes he's wrong and regrets it, but I'll get into that. When he does that little angry nod, it just feels so entitled, and I know I shouldn't be so harsh, but oh my god, it just bothers me so much. So I guess this is a bit of a personal thing too. Entitled people bother me a lot. I don't know if you can tell. Katara is very much allowed to like other people, and that actress isn't even Katara, so he really doesn't have anything to worry about. My real concern is, like, what would happen if he thought Katara had a crush on Zuko? Like, I'm just wondering how that would go, because like his reaction is a little concerning. I know he's a kid, I'm just saying. And then, and this also isn't me pretending like other characters don't do shitty things either. It's just that they're usually called out on it, and so I'm calling out Aang. Sokka, for example, used to be very, very sexist, and then he got called out on it by basically he was destroyed in a fight by a girl. Okay? So, character development. It's just that they're usually called out on it, and so I'm calling out Aang. He's allowed to make mistakes, and I have every right to get mad at them. And then, after that fun little nod, when Katara talks to him about it, he literally says he's so mad that he would be in the Avatar state right now if it wasn't blocked. Dude, that's more dramatic than me, and that's saying something. He doesn't acknowledge that his jealousy might be misplaced. He instead continues the entitlement and then interrogates Katara on her feelings for him, despite her being visibly uncomfortable and not having an answer. Okay, deep breath. Gotta remind myself that these people aren't real. He says, first of all, after we kissed. Again, no, sweetie. I hate it when people use the word sweetie in arguments, but here I am. Okay. Rewind. He says, after we kissed. Again, no, you kissed her, and she looked really sad after it for some reason. And then and she didn't even kiss you back. Like, come on, a little lean. Okay. And then he kisses her after she, like, kind of turns him down. And, like, yeah, he's a kid who screwed up, but then if he's supposedly mature enough to be in a romantic relationship, he should be mature enough to realize respecting boundaries, and also mature enough to apologize to Katara. And I know Aang, okay? That kid hates the thought of hurting Katara and would have apologized the first chance he got. And I feel like the show did him dirty by not putting a scene like that in. But I've already gotten into that, so let's look at Katara's side for a minute. I think we can all agree that Katara's reaction to Aang kissing her and everything she said before that was valid. She doesn't know how she feels, and that's okay. However, the fact that it is never brought up again, the fact that she is all of a sudden head over heels for Aang in the finale without so much as a one-on-one interaction with him doesn't sit right with me. It almost makes it seem like she was mad at Aang for no reason, and that, I don't know, maybe she was secretly in love with him the whole time. I don't think she was, by the way. If we're taking, at least from what we're shown and from what we're told, she says she was confused, so I doubt at that moment she was secretly harboring so many feelings, but she was just lying about it because she was too afraid to admit them. Like, I genuinely just think she didn't know. Like, she may have had a bit of a crush on him, but she was clearly confused about it, and yeah, that finale just felt like an unrealistic leap. I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but one conversation can really do so much, and while I still may not have shipped these two, I might have been less inclined to make this video, because then at least this ship wouldn't feel toxic. Okay, now let's talk about the Zutara angle of respect and entitlement. This is going to be more focused on Zuko because I'm putting a focus on the Southern Raiders. While Katara is mad at Zuko, and I mean like this woman is going to murder him if he does like the littlest wrong thing, he remains pretty respectful. He remains pretty respectful of it. He only confronts her about it once, and when she tells him why she's mad at him, he doesn't push the issue. He instead looks for a way that will show her he is trustable. There's also the whole waiting outside her tent all night so as to not disturb her, but like, I don't know, man, that's cool and all, but like also borderline weird. I'm glad he didn't barge in on her like he did on Sokka, I guess. Though that interaction was absolutely priceless, so no complaints here. Sorry, Sokka. I mean, come on. Zuko's face drop when he sees Sokka is comedy gold. Essentially, Zuko and Katara are at a similar maturity level and have mutual respect from one another, at least eventually, which means that they are, in most regards, better suited for each other. They understand each other. They also are able to connect like things over they're able to connect over issues connect over things such as the loss of their mother, showing that there is an emotional maturity there as well. Aang has a lot more to learn about relationships and maturity before he's ready to be romantically involved with someone. And that person probably shouldn't be Katara, especially since there's the possibility that she'll have to teach him. Things like that. And what I mean there is, I don't think Katara should be the person he's romantically involved in, because like who knows, maybe she's gonna be the person who teaches him respect. Well, not respect, but like, you know what I mean. Teaches them to like be mature in a relationship. Okay. We've almost made it to the end of this marathon, as this is the last big category I have, and also the moment my laptop decides to stop working. Where we are. Here we are. I'm gonna follow this category up with a few miscellaneous thoughts that I couldn't fit into a category, but yeah, that's about it. Okay, emotional connection and understanding. Did you really think I could make a video about Zutara without dissecting the catacomb scene? Sadly, you think too much of me. So, let's do it. This whole scene is so brilliantly done because when Zuko and Katara connect over the loss of their mothers, you'd be forgiven for forgetting that these two are bitter enemies. What's important here is that Zuko is the first one to reach out. He never ever opens up about himself or his past, but he sees a bit of himself and his struggle in Katara and sees that he can open up about it. Katara reciprocates this by immediately apologizing to Zuko and offering him comfort. She even goes as far as to offer to heal his scar with spirit water that she hasn't used until now because she was truly waiting for the right moment. She believes that using the water on the person that's been trying to kidnap her friends for months is the right moment, and that speaks a lot on her compassion and understanding for Zuko. Might also make her kind of an idiot, like sweetie, he tried, oh my god, sweetie again. Katara, he kidnapped Aang. He tried to kidnap Aang, but I appreciate your compassion. Also, can you see the change in lighting? It's kind of the lighting is kind of ugly now because the sun went down. Damn it, the only thing I dislike about winter truly is the lack of sunlight. Like if you give me lots of sunlight, I won't complain. Like I can deal with the bitter cold. Hello? I'm Canadian. But like, it's just the lack of sunlight, man. Okay. She understands that the scar is a burden to him without knowing how he got it. And this then leads to my actual favorite moment in this scene. Katara touches Zuko's scar. I repeat, Zuko lets Katara touch his scar. The one other time someone has tried to touch his scar, he's flinched away and like grabbed that girl's hand. So this is big. Him closing his eyes and trusting Katara is such a big moment, and I get the feels every damn time. I don't even think that this scene has to be romantic, but it should have started, and I feel like it started such a strong friendship between them, but then it's not followed through with in the comics. Like we build this super strong friendship with Zuko and Katara, and you're telling me in the comics there's nothing there? I haven't read all the comics yet, but something tells me that someone was very salty that there were so many Zutara shippers and decided that they were going to have zero interactions as to try and stop them in them tracks, but I don't think that worked. This was also truly the first scene where I realized I full-on shipped Zutara so much, because while I had been toying with the idea all season, I mean, I knew Zuko's redemption arc was coming. I just didn't know that it wouldn't come until the 3rd season. And it was this moment that solidified what makes this ship work, their emotional understanding of one another. This spills into the Southern Raiders, an episode I've already covered, and is also something Aang doesn't provide. Aang simply can't offer Katara the same kind of support because he just isn't as emotionally vulnerable as Katara and Zuko are around each other. The loss of his people and culture is something that deeply affects him, but it's never really something that helps him connect to Katara in a more meaningful way. And hey, that's okay too. You aren't going to open up to everyone about your losses and struggles, but that makes it all the more important that when you do find a person like that, you fully cherish that connection. Okay, fine. That got a little too sappy for a moment, but you get me, right? Zuko is also the only person Katara ever fully tells the details of her mother's death to, because while she brings it up a lot, before all she ever said was that the Fire Nation took her mother from her. She tells Zuko, a person that at that time she doesn't even fully trust yet, more than she's ever told anyone before, because she knows he's truly listening. Okay, now that I sound like a fan fiction and desperately want to move on to something different, let's get into everything else I couldn't fit into a category. But yeah, I'm telling you, man, Katara knew Zuko was fully listening. And Zuko knew Katara was listening. It's cute. It's a fanfic. I read a few Zutara fanfics where that's a thing, so maybe that's why. By the way, I hate reading fanfic, but like the lack of Zutara content made me do it. That's the theme here. The lack of Zutara content made me do it, and I actually enjoyed it. Okay, are you ready for this next part? Zuko took a fucking lightning bolt for Katara. I repeat, he took a lightning bolt for her. And now, I'd like to stop all of you who are about to type, he would have taken a lightning bolt for anyone. Wah! Sure, he would have, but he didn't. He took one for Katara, and he wouldn't have gotten the chance to take one for someone else because Katara was the only person he wanted to take and who he trusted to fight Azula. He knew Katara was the one person who had beaten Azula before, and maybe also low-key wanted her to be the last person he was with if he didn't make it. Okay, bye. It was such a beautiful full circle moment because every single season has ended with a Zutara fight, but this was the first one they were fighting with each other instead of against, and the fact that he was willing to take a lightning bolt for her, to possibly sacrifice his life for her, that he trusted her to finish the fight alone is so powerful and also cute. But we'll get into that. Also, him reaching out to her when he's literally burning from the inside out is the best thing ever. This scene also really felt like a full circle moment for their arcs. Their arcs that have been mirroring each other this whole series finally beautifully conclude here. Well, they're not done growing, but you get what I mean. Like, them constantly being like intertwining with each other, and then this ending with Zuko being willing to sacrifice his life for Katara. But okay, I'm gonna get into one more thing here. Is this scene romantic or not? I know a lot of people will tell you that it isn't, and I know a lot of people who will tell you that it is. So I'm gonna give you my perspective on it. I don't necessarily think, okay, I'm gonna use too many words here. I don't think that this scene is inherently romantic, but I think it sets up a very, very strong base and a very, very strong foundation for this amazingly powerful friendship to turn into a relationship, because it's showing how much these two people are willing to do for each other. You know what I mean? Katara being willing to go with Zuko to take down Azula and wanting to be there with him, and Zuko literally being willing to sacrifice his life for her is the basis of a great friendship, sure, but hello, it could have been the most wonderful relationship. And I think that's where a lot of people get hung up on. Most of the moments we get with Zutara are ones filled with so much potential, and that potential is sorely missed when you look at what we actually got. And that's not to say Kataang is the worst thing ever, it just doesn't feel as good when, at least to me, when I compare it to Zutara. So basically my point here is it doesn't really matter if that Zuko would have taken the lightning bolt for everyone else. It matters that he took it for Katara, and it matters how that plays into these two as characters and how their characters have interacted up until that point. He took a fucking lightning bolt for her. Listen, if someone took a lightning bolt for me, I would marry them on the spot, but like, then again, I'm not Katara. Actually, sorry, I don't know why I just put my glasses off there. I was trying to be cool. I actually wanted to record this video without my glasses on, but like at the moment I can barely see myself in the viewfinder. Viewfinder. I can barely see myself on my phone. Like I can, but not like, yeah, not good enough. Okay. Why don't we touch on the fortune teller episode? Because I have thoughts. I know this, sorry, what time is it? Okay. I know this is a pretty big episode for Kataang shippers, but what always confused me about it was like, wasn't the whole point of the episode that wasn't the whole point of this episode, is that the fortune teller's predictions were wrong, and that like you should be able to shape your own future. And like even if that wasn't the case, then wasn't the foreshadowing like a little too on the nose? Like I get adding in that Katara will have a great romance with a powerful bender, but then having Sokka randomly say that Aang was a powerful bender was odd to me. Like at least have some mystery. Also, it would have been a cool subversion of expectations. Can you tell I love the word subversion? If that bender ended up being Zuko instead, or if she go with a non-bender, cough cough, Suki, cough cough, Ben completely proved the fortune teller wrong. But like, I'm just a salty Zutara shipper, so what do I know, right? Just kidding. Zuka and Suka supremacy. Thank you. Am I pronouncing that right? Zuka and Suka. The only ships that deserve rights in my Lee, because Mei Lee is my. How do I pronounce it? It's Mei, right? Mei Lee, or is it my Lee? It's her Lee. Let's talk about a very big argument against Zutara that I haven't mentioned yet, and that's what about Aang? You know what I'm talking about. All those people that are like, well, if Zutara gets together, I guess Aang will just be lonely and depressed for the rest of his life. Haha. No. Aang is 12. He isn't even a teenager yet. And I can promise you that he will meet someone else and move on with his life if his first crush doesn't like him back. Also, that's really unfair to Katara, isn't it? To not even consider her feelings and put the pressure at 14 to reciprocate feelings for this dude because if she doesn't, it'll ruin his life. Not only is that unfair and diminishing to Katara, it completely disregards Aang's character and makes him rely on Katara for everything. He has other people around him. I mean, his immediate circle of friends includes, other than Katara, Zuko, Sokka, Toph, Suki, and eventually Ty Lee and Mei. He will grow up and find someone else. Almost no one meets the love of their life at 12. Well, I wrote 2 here, but 12. Like, I can assure you that my crush at 12 years old is not my crush now. Like, it's only been 3 years, but I swear it feels like a lifetime ago, and that's how Aang's gonna feel once he gets older, you know? So basically, reconsider how you view Aang and Katara if this is an argument you use. That's all. Just, okay, that's not valid. I know you guys have valid arguments, guys, so this shouldn't be one of them. What about Aang is not an argument because, like, this isn't about Aang. This is about both of them, and if one of them doesn't reciprocate, it doesn't matter what the other person reciprocates. And also, I'm not getting into whether Katara and Zuko have. Oh my god. Next, I went on a rant there. I'm gonna also get into. I think I'm gonna add my own little category about whether I think Zuko and Katara have romantic feelings because I've touched on that. But like, okay, come on, work, laptop, work. Well, first, I guess I should address the whole argument that Zutara was never ever a possibility in this show because I wholeheartedly disagree. 1. June literally exists. June literally exists. You know, the bounty hunter? So why have her constantly bring up Zuko and Katara being together and then not expect people to ship them? Also, why have them blush when she claims that they're dating? Let me address that too. I have seen people who do have feelings for each other vehemently deny that they do, and also people who just see each other as friends do the same. This is a scene fully up for interpretation, and I don't think it's fair to say that it only goes one way. I don't think it's fair to say that it's impossible for Zuko and Katara to have liked each other in this scene, and also that I don't think it fully confirms that they did at all. Like, I think they were head over heels for each other, but I think Jude bringing that up may or may not have made them be like, oh, does she notice our feelings for each other? Up for interpretation. That's the thing here. What you two ships lack, and I'm not, because I'm talking about you, Kataang and Zutara, is a mutual respect. It's understanding that people don't have to ship Kataang and that people don't have to ship Zutara. Like, why? Mostly Kataang. Like, not everyone is going to ship Kataang. I don't think telling Zutara shippers that they're reaching for straws. I did not write an 11-page paper on straws, okay? I wrote it on a strong friendship that very much is implied could have been one of the best romances ever. Thank you. 2. They literally put Zutara and Katara together in the play episode, acknowledging that people ship them and kind of sort of validating the possibility of it happening. But I digress. I just think that actors Zuko and Katara were almost as cute as the real but also not real deal. Basically, you are fundamentally going to give Zutara shippers something if you put their two characters together, even if it's in a play. You're giving them content. Why would you give them content if you didn't want their ship to be a possibility? Unless you're making fun of them. But I don't think you can hurt Zutara shippers' feelings. I'm being honest here. Like, I just feel like they've gotten shit on so much. It's like, bring on anything. Number 3, why would you make their hug so effing adorable? And then my 4th point is that why would you give them parallel arcs and so much symbolism and everything? But like, to add on another point here, I don't know if Zuko and Katara had romantic feelings for each other in the show. Some points I feel like they might have, some points I'm like maybe they didn't. But I feel like the show set up such a strong base for a truly good relationship. Like, their friendship works, but it felt like it made so much sense for their friendship to take that next level where it didn't make sense for Aang and Katara to do the same. And that's another thing. And like I've already mentioned before, it would have worked for Aang's arc if you had to let Katara go. It would have been very cool to see Zuko and Katara start off as enemies and end off as lovers, because I'm a sucker. But I think I also don't necessarily think that that if Zutara were to happen, it should have happened at the end of the show. Because for that to happen, they obviously would have had to add in more scenes that showed their development. I mean, I literally wrote like a mini little, like I did that myself, because I was like, I'm gonna do this, so I rewrote, like I did the missing scene thing where you like add in scenes, and I developed them. But yeah, I think that's what the comics could have been. The comics could have been them building on their strong friendship foundation and taking that to a relationship. But instead, the comics just were like, what is the minimum amount of Zutara content we can give these people without acknowledging that we set up an amazing friendship between them and then decided to disregard it? Oh, damn. We've made it. This is the end. I hope you considered this hour well spent. I hope I convinced someone to ship Zuko and Sokka, and also Zutara, I guess. Or at the very least, I hope that you understand why I feel the way I do. And hey, maybe you can change my mind. It's honestly not that hard to do. I'm Dr. Seuss now. Haha. Okay, but in all seriousness, I hope you guys enjoyed my rant. It felt so good to get all of this off my chest. And now I can move on and look for more video ideas. I'm very bad at that. Remember to subscribe, I guess, if you enjoyed this. Like, comment, YouTube stuff. Bye.